Okay, well, thank you. Thank you everyone for being here. This meeting of the Albuquerque Bernalillo County Government Commission meeting will come to order. Councilor Harris and Commissioner Talbert are excused this evening. CAO Sarita Nair is excused, and Ms. Nair has actually assigned Mr. Isaac Padilla to attend on her behalf. So welcome, Isaac, wherever you are on the Zoom. And then we have APS advisory member Candelaria Patterson is excused this evening, but in her absence, she's invited APS board president, Dr. David Piercy, to be here. So welcome, Dr. Piercy. And all other members are present via Zoom. We will have a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner O'Malley.
Okay, please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioner. I know I caught you off guard. So
yeah, I was like, do I remember the pledge? I think I did. Thank goodness.
You did very, very well. This meeting has special procedures given the governor's declaration of public health emergency and restrictions on gatherings. Therefore, this meeting is being held via Zoom video conference. Members of the public, staff, and the media have the ability to view this meeting live through our 4 different platforms: GovTV on Comcast Channel 16, on GovTV website, YouTube Live, and Zoom. These live streams can be accessed from most smartphones, tablets, or computers. For those watching on live stream, thank you for joining us. So the next item we have is approval of the minutes. I'll make a motion unless there are any changes to the November 19th minutes. There's a motion and a second by Commissioner O'Malley. Who's doing the call? Ms. Ortega, will you please do the roll call?
Yes. Councilor Basan.
Yes.
Councilor Borrego.
Yes.
Commissioner Colley.
Yes.
Mr. Padilla.
Yes.
Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes.
Commissioner Piscotti.
Yes.
Councilor Pena.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal. We are now on public comment. We have received a few written comments in advance of today's meeting. Thank you for the individuals who took the time to submit their comments. We will now go to live public comment. We have 2 individuals signed up to speak. So Mr. Moya, will you please invite those members in who have signed up to speak? And if you can just be patient with us as they enter the Zoom world.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our first speaker is Peter Kubra. Peter, please unmute yourself and feel free to turn your video. And your 1.5 minutes will begin when you start speaking.
I'm not certain that I'm the person who you called on because I was in limbo for a while, but my name is Peter Kubra. Am I the right person at this time?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Please
you are.
proceed.
Thanks. I will just thank you all for today's meeting and for talking about this issue that's really important to me and my work since 1984 to try and have better responses for people who have behavioral health needs that would not involve police, would not involve incarceration. I want to make clear that my comments that I sent by email earlier today are mine personally. I happen to be part of a coalition. Some of you have participated in that coalition. I was only speaking for myself. My colleagues who are on that steering committee will be speaking on your agenda later today. I do want to say, though, that it seems to me essential that the ABCGC come up with strategic planning and a strategic plan document so that the county's funding of some behavioral health services and the city's funding of a community safety department in some fashion integrate into one comprehensive approach. And if I understand correctly where the city is heading, to have city employees respond to behavioral health crisis and outreach calls, and then hand over to community provider agencies the follow-along services and ongoing support and treatment is a model that I think would be quite workable, even though my personal view is that what's being done in Oregon would be a superior approach, but I accept that the city and county seem to be headed toward city employees doing the response and proactive services being done by community providers. So I just
Thank you,
want
Mr. Kubra. Your time is up.
I'd want to thank you for letting me speak today.
Thank you.
Julian and Mr. Moya, if you don't mind, I'd like Mr. Kubra to finish his comments.
Please proceed, Mr. Kubra.
Thank you. I just want to say this, that it does seem to me that a strategic plan that puts that together and consultation with respect to people who have helped other communities do similar things is very important. And so I do hope that the ABCGC will collaborate in coming up with a plan and the technical assistance that would make this plan work effectively and promptly. Thank you very much for letting me finish.
Thank you.
Mr. Kubra.
Madam Chair, we had one other person sign up to speak, but I do not see them attending the meeting. So with that, that would conclude public comment.
Okay. Well, with that, then, thank you for being with us this evening, Mr. Kubra. I think Julian will have you, I don't know how that works, Julian, you just exit them out of the meeting?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay. So then next we have new business. We have item A, a presentation regarding the Albuquerque Community Safety Department. Commissioner Colley requested this item, so I will turn the floor over to Commissioner Colley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate that. The request arose from several correspondence and contacts from constituents in the county asking what the plans were, how the county and the city would work together on that, and when the city planned to bring all of that on board. All of those questions are good questions, but were simply beyond my capacity to give any reasonable or responsible answer. So I had anticipated that the city would be prepared at this meeting to give a presentation on where the city is in terms of establishing that department. And I look forward to that if indeed that's going to be here.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner Colley. So we have Mariela Ruiz Angel here. I think, there you go. So go ahead and proceed.
Great. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm going to share my screen very quickly. If I can get access, Julian, or whoever's monitoring.
Give me 1 second. Okay, you should have the ability now.
Great. So I'm Mariela Ruiz Angel, and I have been chosen for the great responsibility of helping to coordinate this department, the Albuquerque Community Safety Department, ACS. You can have my information below, and I'll make sure to share this slide with you so you can get in contact with me after the fact. So this community safety department is a cabinet level department. So it's not a program within the police department, and it's not a program in family and community. It's very separate, that will have divisions, and I'll share the org chart as we start to go into the presentation. But ultimately, this new department is a first responder model. It's to respond to 911 calls. It's also going to do outreach and follow-up for a number of types of 911 calls, right? Such as inebriation and calls on addiction and mental health and behavioral health and homelessness. We are looking to hire first responders that have backgrounds in social work, counseling, homelessness, community workers, right? Prometoras, people who have the experience in working with communities and helping those communities navigate the systems that help them to not just survive, but to thrive as a resident in Albuquerque. So these aren't like concrete goals. They're not like our vision and our mission per se, but they are goals that we keep in mind when we're making decisions and working with community. So ultimately, we want to work to reduce arrests and incarceration of people suffering from poverty, substance abuse, or psychological challenges. And that also means decriminalizing those mental and behavioral health issues, right? We have to stop putting people in jails for things that they could potentially be getting assistance with, right? That's what that restorative justice is really about, is like, let's not criminalize people who could be getting assistance in other ways. And then the last one, right, is really to improve the access to broad range of social services. And it's not just within the city, because we do have great services, but the county does too, right? And so does the community. And it's like, how do we start thinking about coordination in a way that's, I think we've attempted, but have never really been successful at, when it comes to understanding each of our capacities, the programs that we're offering, the limitations that we have, and then how we can grow those and work more closely together. So we got here through probably the last 2 to 3 years. We definitely knew that we wanted to address these issues in a large way, but I think there was, kind of this waiting game. Like, do we hire more officers? Do we create a triage center? Do we need a sobering center that can handle the issues we have? And unfortunately, like, nothing really came to fruition, and we were just like this waiting game that eventually, I think, came to a halt during the summer, when we saw that there were issues that just were becoming worse and worse, right? George Floyd was when this really came to light. And so this wasn't new to us, right? We knew that we have issues like this, but what it really did was just say, we couldn't wait anymore, right? We have the data that supports this. We have the community support. We need to move forward. So I want to kind of linger on this slide a little bit more and kind of talk, just bring up a couple highlights. I think many of you have seen some of these slides. So one of the things that happened early on in our process was we engaged with community very early, which was new for them. I think it was new for us. We didn't really have a big, right? We hadn't have any development. There was no prototype that we were bringing to them. It was really about engaging them to see what they felt was necessary for this department, what they wanted to see come out of this. And so that data will come out in a report closer to the end of the year. It's kind of been me and a very small staff with a very small budget. So we didn't have a ton of support for evaluation, but we did feel like the outreach piece of this, and we did also do a survey that went out in which we got about almost 3,000 responses that was really helpful in the development of this, and to also just kind of keep us on the right path. I also want to bring to light that we've been in this really great place where we're starting to have conversations about policies and procedures, right? SOPs, how we plan on working with police, how we plan on working with fire, looking at very specific situations, and then breaking them down. We're also starting to have the conversation more deeply as we've been pulling calls and types of codes that we would be going out to situations. And we're realizing that our dispatch system, although I know we're looking at getting a new CAD system that will help us generate better data, currently it's a struggle for us to integrate into that model, right? We will have to create new codes that specifically for ACS. We will have to ask a little bit of that additional question, right? So that we're not sending somebody into a dangerous situation that they're not qualified for, or vice versa, right? That we're not sending an officer to something that really has a mental and behavioral health underlying issue. And then the last thing I want to talk about as we're getting into the January, April phase is that we have developed, through the help of Councilor Borrego, a planning committee. And although the planning committee was made up of really great partners, right? The city, the county, the state, we also felt like it was missing some of those community advocates. So we've included an additional, I think it's like 10 to 11 advocate groups, nonprofits, organizations, coalitions, who are going to help us in that planning process as well. So we're really excited that that has started and will continue through next year. So what we've learned, and just to share a couple, I guess maybe not fun facts, but just ways that we've kind of continued through this work and making sure that we know we're on the right path. When in the survey, we asked about what the community felt that this department should be doing. And it was very clear in this, right? Connecting individuals to community social services to decrease future emergencies, right? Prevention work. And then the second one was de-escalation work. Right, at no point do we want to recreate or duplicate efforts that the community is really already good at. If anything, we've been looking at ways to build up those nonprofits and put money into those organizations that we think that we will have relationships with so that we can help build their capacity. There is going to be a huge need for partnerships. We do not have the capacity for case management or long-term intensive care. This is about first responder going out to the scene, assessing it, and making sure that we get them the right services. And then secondly, I did want to share super quickly was the types of services, right? So a top three were, we want to make sure that we're connecting individuals to homelessness services, drug treatment, overdose prevention, and needle exchange. And the last one I want to talk about is that we have no intentions on sending people to domestic violence calls. However, when I looked deeper into this question, what I found is that we encounter through street outreach sometimes in working with community that they have trauma from domestic violence past. And a lot of times have not dealt with that. And so we think that there is a way for us to connect those individuals to get the support that they need to deal with that trauma. So this isn't like while it's in the middle of happening, right? This is a 911 call to a domestic violence service call. It's the after impact that we might encounter. So again, we went through types of calls. We're pulling our 311 calls, which has been very fun. 242 cops, the list goes on, environmental. So from that data analysis, we were able to kind of come up with a little bit of a draft list of types of calls that we think we could potentially start with. Now, this is our internal working doc. I wasn't sure if I wanted to share it, but I felt like it would help explain kind of our process. So originally these were all just thrown into a bucket, and we said, we think that these are all calls we can go out to. And then we started going in one by one to see if that was, true. We found that these top ones were ones that we thought we could send out these new responders in teams of 2. That includes things like suicide, but doesn't have a plan, like right ideation. This is also our homeless encampments, erratic and disorganized behavior. We see this when we're driving down Central sometimes and this could be, for all we know, my grandma who has dementia, right? We want to be able to go out and assess and see what's happening at that moment without causing that person to feel alarmed or scared. And then this will also include potentially, we've explored domestic violence message for delivery. There's a 4-hour time that you have between the time an offender is released from MDC and the victim, has noticed. And so we want to make sure that we are having those conversations with the victim to say, right, it's okay if they don't want to get connected to services, but do you have a safety plan, right? So we're working through ways that we can connect with community in a much more meaningful and purposeful way. So I'll let you kind of go through this when I send out the presentation, but know that, and I'll fast forward down to the bottom. A big call that community wanted us to go out to was the welfare checks. And although we felt that we could probably go out to those, the number of issues from the most critical to the simplest type of situation all fell into welfare checks. And so it's one of those call types that we have not solidified on whether or not we will send ACS responders out in teams with a police officer or maybe after the fact. There's lots of issues that come up with these. And again, I'm happy to go into them if you have questions, but some of these calls, what we found is that they're just too unpredictable. And so we want to make sure that what we're doing is identifying which ones we think we could go out to and start to almost do like a experimentational piece, right? Let's send them out with police officers and see what that looks like for at least having backup. And then as we start to get more accustomed to going out to these, maybe they can go out in teams of 2. So I want to kind of end a little bit as we go into our org chart. This has changed. It's an ever-growing department. It's new. It's like working in a startup if you've ever done startup work, but it's always constantly changing. This has been our recent iteration. So just a quick explanation, the ACS director will fall under the CAO. We will have 2 deputy directors, one that will that will handle policy and administration pieces, including the pipeline program that we were lucky enough to have money allocated to from City Council to help us with helping train and certify employees who are coming into these positions. So that'll be really exciting. And then we want to make sure we have a deputy director of field response. And that means having 2 types of divisions. This will be somebody who probably will be a manager that will help with the mobile crisis team clinicians who are coming in to ACS, as well as our community responders. And these are these new responders. Additionally, we'll have a community response division, and this is where our homeless encampment outreach, and then what we're calling emergency community responders. These are responders who have a background in like health issues, right? Similar to EMTs, but we'll be able to get to a scene quickly and assess if the person is in dire need to get to emergency services, or if we can connect them to providers and nonprofits and organizations. So everyone's going to play a role, some of them more intense than others. And then we'll go from here. The numbers on this chart, or this org chart, are really reflective of just between now, what we're hoping to have between now and the end of June. And then and then this is my last one. So to kind of reiterate so that people understand our process, this feels very simplified, but I felt like it helps me remember what this new department's about, right? So you get a call from 911 and dispatch will, right, we will send out, if let's say we get a situation and we have no idea what we're going out to. We get those calls a lot, like maybe it's a person down at the bus stop. We will send out somebody from ACS, and their first intervention is to see if this is a life or death thing, right? If it is something that we need to call for backup, we will immediately call APD or AFR and stay with that person until that group, that next level shows up. If that is not the case, we will then consider that to be a crisis intervention, in which we will assess the problem, assess the situation, de-escalate and stabilize, and then determine the type of need that's appropriate, right? This might be a referral. This might be pants and a pair of shoes and a coffee. And this also might just be like somebody who called that we get to a scene and it's not an issue at all and we leave them alone. And then the last piece of intervention that we know happens a lot is we get out to a situation. We may not even be called. This could just be an outreach or a 311 or a constituent service call that we get that we need to determine the need for. So I think there'll be multiple levels of intervention, but I do want to, again, reiterate, this is not long-term case management. This is not intensive care. This is not, we are meant to be soft touch. Now, I do hope that we have capacity for some follow-up, right? I would love to be able to see if we were successful in getting people the right services, if they're building a relationship with one of our partners. I'd love that. But do I think that we'll have capacity for every person to get follow-up? Probably not. But I do think that that's a piece that we want to make sure that we try to do, at least with some of our more frequent, especially those frequent calls. So the last slide, which many of you have seen, and it wouldn't, as a social worker myself, I want to make sure I address the system. And this is where I think Peter Kubra's comment comes into play, right? I think that this is a slide, just for your background, that we used during our homeless conversations, outreach conversations, about, I guess it was a year ago, feels much longer. And it was really to talk about the cost that we are taking on when we send out police and fire to what they were calling down and outs. I call, they're ultimately their wellness check, right? Somebody who might be on the street and we don't know if they're inebriated or sick or what's happening. And what we were finding, right, is that as the cost was great. And what we were also finding is that at the end of the day, we weren't seeing transports to social services. Now, I can assume, I mean, it'd be easy for me to assume that it's because we don't have the relationships, but that's not true. What we were finding is that we don't have the system in place to be able to take the individuals that we were encountering, especially in those times of days that we know that some of our organizations aren't open, right? We don't have enough detox beds. We don't have a triage center. There's some systems in place that I think are missing, and they're much bigger than what ACS is going to be able to do on any given night. And so I think that we have to be realistic about the fact that ACS will, and I think can, make a big difference in the way that we are working with communities and pulling calls away from cops so that they can really focus on violent crimes. But I think that we are going to change everybody's life because of this department? No, I think that we're going to have to collaborate, and we are going to have to work with the city and the county and the state and all of our partners to start addressing the bigger issues that we have in New Mexico. So I'll leave it, I'll end there and open it for questions.
Madam Chair.
Commissioner.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Commissioner Colley, I'll turn it over to you first since you're the one that requested the presentation.
Thank you. I find that very impressive. I am stunned, delighted at the level of dig down deep into all the different kind of issues, and goodness knows that touches so many issues. I compliment you on beginning that process and admire your courage for doing it. You kind of alluded to having been picked and placed rather than applied for that job. So sometimes those are the most challenging and the best ones that can happen. I spent a great deal of the late afternoon in meetings as part of a subcommittee with the Homeless Coordinating Council. And that subcommittee is supposed to be looking at coordinated street outreach. These are nonprofits. These are often funded agencies that operate as part of the broader scope within the community. Some are self-funded, so it's a collection of a variety of agenda and all different kinds of stuff out there. And one of the that I heard you allude to, and something that I think is critically important, is the whole issue of decriminalizing this kind of range of behaviors, so that just because someone is acting out in a particular way or says certain things or goes to sleep on a bus stop does not mean they're criminal, or that homelessness is not criminal. So I was grateful to hear you say that. What the street outreach people are aware of is that nobody yet has been willing to pick up the mantle to stage the public campaign that's needed to educate the populace. You talked about how we influence officers during their training. And let me say that it's not just a city issue, that's a county issue as well, as we hopefully see the county sheriff and the deputies integrate within this system and know what the system does and know how they can respond throughout the whole process. So two things I'd like to hear you address is more than just as an institutional response on the part of your group about decriminalizing in the public mind this behavior, how can we do that systemically throughout the city? And, if in fact, some of the people in the meeting this afternoon said, that new department the city's talking about, that's who's going to do it. That's where we depend on them to do that. And I said, no, but somebody has to. So I would appreciate you addressing that issue. And then I have a question about the whole issue of triage, how we decide what we're dealing with and how we get the right people there, because I'm still unclear that we have a hold of that one. So anyway,
is that your two questions,
That's my two
Commissioner
questions.
Colley?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so Ms. Ruiz Angel, if you can answer those, thank you.
Thank you. So Commissioner Kelly, yeah, that is a big task. I think the public education, the system change, the culture change, if I'm bold enough to say, within the city is going to have to change. And I will say that it's already happening in a way that I never really thought it would. And it really does come down to, I'll give you an example, and it probably isn't something that we can duplicate every time, but I do think it's starting to help create like the narrative around how we can work interdepartmentally. Today I got a call from Constituent Services, and they had received an email from a resident who was struggling with potentially a meth lab right next door to her, and she was losing weight and losing sleep and feeling sick, and was really struggling with this situation. And originally that email went to the governor, came back to the city, and I got the email, and so did APD. And so we both sent emails right about the same time back to Constituent Services, both with opinions on how we should handle the situation. Interesting enough, the officer, who's fantastic and I've worked with multiple times, was like, "Oh, this woman has an addiction herself." And I was like, that's interesting. What part of the email gave that away? Because I saw it as an environmental health code situation that potentially could lead it to like an explosion and God knows what else might be happening, right? So I took it to a whole other place. But it was funny because it allowed us to have a discussion, not just with myself, but with folks that I was just happened to be meeting with, and him and some of his staff, to come into a conversation about, why did your biases assume, right, that this person was an addict? And then I too had to admit that maybe I'm just naive. Maybe I just was hoping that this woman would have, right, but maybe what she was saying was truthful. So long story short, we found somebody to go out. We actually sent out our mobile crisis team because we don't have ACS responders yet. And there was a multitude of issues. It sounds like environmental health had been out the day before. It sounded like crime prevention was out there. It sounded like this woman wasn't crazy, but sounded like she may have been manic. I mean, there was all kinds of stuff that came out of it. And so it was really interesting to then debrief with the police department and now environmental that we're bringing in, to say we were going to kick this. I mean, they were going to kick this down the road and eventually, send somebody out maybe in January. And so I do think that, Commissioner Colley, I can't say that this will be the case every time, but what it allowed for is a conversation between 3 different departments to talk about biases, right? Like assumptions, and protocol, like how are we going to handle this every time we get this type of call? And so I do think that this is probably going to be very normal behavior that we'll experience, but I do think that there's going to be opportunity for us to have these type of debriefs and these type of collaborations to say, how do we address these type of issues? And again, that was a very simple one. And I think we're having those conversations, and hopefully with this new planning committee, with the county, right? Yes, we need to collaborate 100%. And yes, do we struggle sometimes? Yes. But do I think that there's space and time and motivation to get on the same strategic plan. We're doing this now with our VIP program and our RAD program, is how does ACS and RAD and VIP work together so that we can address that type of those types of issues that we're seeing. So it may not be the best answer to say that we can change the culture and that say we can change the way we do things at the city, but I do think it's the first time that I've been in a conversation with police and environmental and myself in which nobody was like anger or placing blame or or too sensitive about it. I think it was a great start. And I think that the more that we do this with ourselves and also with our community, like I want to have space that we can call, Hope Works and work with some of our partners to say what's working and what's not working. Like, how do we get on the same page? How do we start to talk to our public? We also have to acknowledge that sometimes we get calls for situations that are not a crime. And that means that sometimes we might need to go to that 7-Eleven manager and say, the panhandler across the street that I know is really bothering you, it's not a crime to panhandle there. And we'll work with him and we'll, let you know. But what we're really needing to do is stop having people call 911 for every single thing that they just don't like. Right? We need to start educating people on that 242 cops. We need to start educating people that they might get an ACS responder and not a police officer and what that means. So yeah, there'll be a big educational piece to this that I think we're going to really push out in the new year. And then there was a second question, but
let me just, I think I can do it quickly, which is, it's the issue of triage. How do you know what's on the phone? But the other side of that is, how do you involve all the resources at that point instead of just yours? I see Margarita here, and the county has this range of resources. I met in the committee this afternoon with a psychiatric doctor who is with the emergency room at UNMH, and I know from her own storytelling how important those connections are. So it's not just how do you understand who's on the phone, but how do you triage all of the helping services and not just think you can do it all yourself?
Yep. So I think that's going to be our coordinator. We're hiring a coordinator to help, hoping to create a coordinator in this first fiscal year. That's going to be kind of that person, right? Who will work with the county, who will work with partners and determine how many beds are available, what kind of services are being offered, is there capacity, do they meet qualifications, right? The last thing we want to do is re-traumatize or hold people up in the process of intervention or therapy, right? By sending them to a partner who's like, nope, we don't have time, or we don't have people, or we don't have money, right? Like that happens all the time. And so I think it's going to be really important that this coordinator of services really is going to be that person who's going to really help make those connections. But it's a theory. It's my hope. Does it, let's see what we can do. But I do think that we'll have to figure out how to create, better meeting processes as well.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions? Commissioner
Madam
O'Malley.
Chair, thank you very much. As I was looking at the graph, the last, when you showed that graph and how you're working on interacting with the folks in need, or who are, in terms of, you mentioned some issue. I mean, you called it down and out, and then you called it something else, but it's folks who are experiencing some sort of trauma or crisis. And then we sort of go down to the bottom. It's like, well, what are the resources to help these folks? And a lot of it has to do with housing, initial housing and permanently affordable housing, and these kinds of things, which we're really focused on as a city and as a county in this partnership that we've created, which really shows the need to have this triage shelter system in place. I know that the city is looking at locations, etc. But that's really that's a big missing piece right now as part of this continuum, housing continuum. So, it seems to come down to that many times. What do we do? How can we support people through that process? What kind of options do we have for either transitional or shelter, transitional, affordable, permanent, just on and on. Anyway, I appreciate your presentation. That was very clear, and it looks like it was well thought out. You certainly have reached out to the community for a lot of comments, and so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Councilor Borrego.
I just wanted to say to Mariela that you are a very brave young lady, and I am concerned the chart that you showed with all, that you said you didn't want to show us. I'm sorry to say, but there's a lot of tasks in there and a lot of pieces, and it concerns me a little bit. I have to be honest with you that when you talked about your goals, they're still not real concrete, and I think it's really important that you tighten those up as much as possible, because the last thing I want to see with this department is that it's set up to fail because you have too much on your plate, and you cannot be all things to all people. I'm sorry to say, I know there's a lot of needs out there, but you just can't. I mean, it'll be the first step in failure, and I don't want to see that happen. And that's partly why I chose to recommend that we take some bites at the apple, because I've been around City Hall a little while, and I understand, I've seen departments come and go, and I think understanding the roles between APD and AFR and all of these other groups that do this kind of work is really important, because the last thing you want to do is create another level of bureaucracy. And I heard you loud and clear when you said, I don't want to create another situation where I send them somewhere and then they can't get the help. So I just, first of all, encourage you guys to really tighten up those goals, and then look at that list. And I'm sure you have other lists as well, and group things together that you can group together, because as you gain more staff, you don't want to have confusion. You want to be very clear. And I'm really excited about you guys, what you're trying to do. And I'm really excited about you guys working with other, the city, the county, the state, our partners in the community. I think that is, that's admirable that you guys are trying to do that. And I look forward to hearing more about this in the future, and seeing how it kind of sort of tightens that up and fleshes itself out. But thank you for the work that you're doing.
Thank you, Councilor Borrego. Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering, first of all, I'm still very excited about this department. Every time I hear from you, every time I see all the information, I think it's something that is going to begin part of the change that we're all talking about needing. But can you just top few, what has changed on this presentation from the original one that we've seen, aside from maybe the org chart? That was the obvious one to me, but because I know we saw the 3 different phases and the timelines, and I know things have changed with the budget. So if you can just kind of real quick give us a summary on what's been changed since, I guess, budget time and the last time we talked about it, that would be awesome, please.
Sure. So I will say the big pieces that we've had is the planning committee has been established and is rolling. We have created job descriptions and scope of services for all of the positions, including the director and the deputy directors. Those will, for sure, the director position, we agreed that was going to go out to the public. So we do, if you have folks that are wanting to take on a very ambitious journey, send them over. So those positions are drafted and are being put in front of our planning committee. We are narrowing down, so this will also answer Borrego. So the list of calls that I showed earlier are the list of calls that we hope to be able to get to someday. I think we're going to start with, we concretely feel like we're going to start with about 4 to 5 of those types of calls. As you saw, all the security positions that were once in the org chart, all of that is gone. All the crosswalk, all of that piece is been completely pulled out thanks to City Council. And then I think we're in the process, but it was very premature. We've already started to create policies and procedures, so SOPs, and I think that's where we're kind of at right now. And then the budget, I've started to finalize FY21 budget so that we know how we're going to use the money going for the next 6 months. But we are also in the process now of creating FY22 budget, which is actually really exciting because hopefully we can see some major growth in that during that time.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate all your hard work on it. So we're going to move on to a presentation regarding youth suicide and prevention. Our APS members requested this item be on the agenda, and APS Board President Dr. David Piercy and APS Board Member Elizabeth Armijo will present on this item and call upon any of APS staff. So Dr. Piercy or Ms. Armijo?
Yes, hi, good evening, thank you. We actually have 2 of our APS staff that are with us, Dr. Christina Mira, as well as Vicki Price, and they will be giving the presentation this evening. This is actually a presentation that we were scheduled to give in March, and for obvious reasons that was rescheduled. So we thank you, and we look forward to our presentation. So I'll hand it over to Vicki as well as Dr. Mira.
Thank you
so much. I'm Chris Muir. I am the Executive Director for the Student Family Community Supports Division in Albuquerque Public Schools, and Vicki Price is also here with me, and she is the Senior Director for Counseling for Albuquerque Public Schools. And Madam Chair and members of the Commission and our board members, thank you so much for allowing us to do this, even though it's a little bit late. It still is pertinent, and we will have an ask for you at the end of the presentation. So I wanted to start with, we had done a lot of work last year on youth suicide prevention. And we came up with a motto, which is one message, one community, working together to prevent youth suicide. And this motto came about in working with UNM, City of Albuquerque, and some county people, lots of people. So I'm going to ask for the next slide and turn it over to Vicki Price to talk to you a little bit about some statistics.
Good evening. Thank you for having us here tonight. I really appreciate it. You know, in APS, certainly youth suicide is front and center for the things that the school counselors work on. And you know, I can share all the statistics with you, but what we all know is that the suicide rate in New Mexico is dire and concerning. The youth suicide rate fluctuates a little bit every year, but we're not seeing any significant drops in the data, which is always concerning. So you know, when we talk about the age groups, the 15 to 24 year age group, that data is concerning to us. And if you look at New Mexico specifically in that age group, 29% of the deaths in that age group come from suicide. And So, we see the need every day. And then when you also look at even the younger kids from 10 to 14, it's the second leading cause of death in New Mexico in that age group. That's concerning. And we're seeing those numbers of those 10 and 11-year-olds who are 5th and 6th graders rising. And so, we've had to expand certainly our outreach and prevention and interventions to meet the needs, especially of the younger kids. And, one of the things that we always look at when we're in prevention is that kids give warning signs, and some of the best information we get is from the kids' friends. So, we take the stance that we need to talk about this with everybody, with the adults, with the kids, because the kids sometimes are the ones that let us know when their friends are in trouble. And that's really important for us. I mean, if you see that at the bottom, 4 out of 5 teens who attempt suicide have given clear warning signs. So we really need to teach their family and friends and our staff in our schools, as well as the community, what are the warning signs and what do we do, when we get that information, and not shy away from that. You can go to the next slide. Who's ever manning the slides? So, we were looking at the YRS data, the Youth Risk and Resiliency Survey in Bernalillo County. And when we created this slide that we were going to present in March, but thanks to COVID, that was delayed and we're here now. But so I'm going to give you some updated numbers as well. But the 2017 data indicated for high school students that 18.5% considered suicide. And alarmingly, middle schoolers were even at a higher rate of 22.8%. We don't have the updated middle school data, but the current 2019 data for high school, that number has jumped to 21.4%. So, that's always concerning when we have kids that are seriously considering suicide and are really struggling. For high schoolers who plan suicide, 16.1%, and that rose a little bit with the most recent data to 18.4%. And then our middle school data from 2017 was at 15.1. Suicide attempts. So kids who indicated on this Youth and Resiliency Survey that they had attempted suicide was at 9.6. That number did go up a little bit to 10.7%. And then of course the middle school there was at 8.9%. So, and again, injured in a suicide attempt, you can see the data there, 3.4, that did drop a little bit to 3.3 for high school. And we didn't collect that data for middle school. But I think these this information really gives us a good starting point. Especially in a school setting, we know when we're doing prevention, when we're reaching out to students, what are they thinking about? What's on their minds when it comes to suicide, and really the high numbers in getting our attention, and I think that the kids, I know a group from El Dorado did present to you, I believe it was last spring, and they talked about a wellness room, and it was through their efforts that, they were really raising awareness at their school. And, I'm really grateful for that group of students from El Dorado, because they've brought this front and center again for us to pay attention to. Not that we weren't before, but when the kids bring it up, it gets your attention in a whole different way. And I think, our school board was really supportive in helping us hear the kids and figure out what we needed to do. So while we have, this survey data, I think it's really important for us to have open communication with the kids in the schools. And that's certainly what my school counselors in all of our schools try to do. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So, one of the messages that we share and we're working on and came from some of the work from the students from El Dorado is that this is something we can work on together. We need to encourage people to not be reluctant to get involved. There's ways that everybody can help. And the more we know about how to prevent suicide, the warning signs for suicide, we can all work together on it. When you look at there's a lot of foundations. We typically use some information from the Jason Foundation, which is phenomenal. They have curriculum for the schools, which we use, and also the Trevor Project. But in all of these, they have major outreach components, how we can all support each other, and that this is something we need to work on together. And that's something we're committed to and working on in our schools. But we know, and that's partly why we're here, is that we need your help. This is not something that we can do alone. Many communities have struggled with youth suicide, and when they all band together, things tend to work, and we can reduce the numbers. But I think we're, as a public school system, we really need your help, and we need support in preventing suicide for our young people.
Go to the next slide, please. So back in February, we held a joint press conference. So the city, the county, UNM, and APS were together. And because of COVID, a lot of us don't even remember that happened. Our meeting, this presentation was, as member Armijo said, was supposed to happen in March. It would have been high on everybody's mind. So I want to take you back on a little trip back to February. Prior to February, we did a lot of work. We brought together a lot of people. We brought a national consultant out to give us feedback. That national consultant did a lot of work in Palo Alto when they had youth suicide contagion happening there, and gave us a lot of feedback. Many of you probably know Dr. Steve Adelschein. He used to be here in New Mexico. His heart is still here, and he gave us a lot of good advice, information, and recommendations. So, after all of that, we did a press conference and hoping to build some momentum around having one message and one community around youth suicide. Each of the entities talked about what they were doing at that time. We requested the media play an active and positive role. Media can very often contribute to contagion, and just by what they say or don't say. Dr. Adelschein actually spent a day with the Journal when he was out here talking to them about how to change their messaging and what they can do to help. And we delivered that joint message of we need to work together to make an impact on youth suicide prevention. So the next slide, please. So as Vicki indicated, suicide is one of the leading causes of death, but it's also the leading cause of preventable death. Let me say that again. It's the leading cause of preventable death. It doesn't have to happen. And so the US, in the United States, we lose an average of more than 130 youth every week. That's a tragedy. And we can prevent that. So how are we going to do that? Go to the next slide, please. So what we're here is to ask you for some help. We're not coming to ask for money. That's not what we want. What we need is a collaborative. We need to say we are all in this fight together. We're going to figure out the solutions together. This is not only an APS issue. It's not just a county issue. It's not just a city issue. It's all of ours. We own this, and we all need to step up to the plate. So the strategy that we're asking for is to put together a collaborative around suicide prevention. We need your help in helping identify the people that will be willing to come together. We don't want people told, now this is part of your job, go be part of this collaborative. We need willing participation. We want to come together we can't do this work in silos. When we did that press conference, it was amazing at how much everybody was doing, but we weren't doing it together. And we weren't figuring out where the gaps were. We weren't figuring out where we could move together. Let me give you an example. What happened in Palo Alto, California. What they discovered as they came together was that there is a thing about convenience of death. So youth that can contemplate taking their life by suicide, if it's convenient, many times it becomes, they finish the act. And in Palo Alto, they have a train track that runs right through the middle of the town. And that's how youth were choosing to take their lives. So what did they do? The collaborative got together, and during the high traffic times, because they had to cross that tracks to get to school, during those times, parents lined up along the tracks to stop kids from crossing the tracks when trains were coming. It wasn't that simple, and it wasn't the only thing they did, but it was extremely impacting because it sent two messages. One is, we're not going to let you do this. And the other message is, we care about you. What do we need to do in Albuquerque? What do we need to do in Bernalillo County? What do we need to do for our youth to let them know that we're here for them? I don't know that answer. If I did, I wouldn't be here. I'd just be doing it. We need to come together. We need to talk about it openly and start to break down the silos between our work and figure out how we can work together to prevent youth suicide. The next slide, please. So with that, I'm going to leave you with just a quote from the Jason Foundation. Never be reluctant to get involved, and always take any child adolescent's desire to intend to harm themselves seriously. If you suspect a young person of suicidal ideation, get them to professional help immediately. Suicide is preventable, and together we can save lives. So with that ask, I'm going to stop talking and open it up for any questions or comments that you might have.
May I first say thank you to Chris and Vicki for that presentation, and thank you for your request. And I just would like to add that in addition to the presentation, APS also has same-day suicide assessments. We also do annual staff trainings. We have a youth-driven peer-to-peer program, which you may have heard about earlier in the year. And we also have those students that are online watching right now on that as well. In addition, we have our school counselors that are trained specifically around student mental health. So again, in reference to the request, we would appreciate any additional dialogue on the formation of a collaborative. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Armijo. Councilor Bassan has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one question and then a sort of a response to your ask. I've never heard of youth suicide contagion, and I'm assuming it's what it sounds like, where it becomes trendy. Like it's trendy to commit suicide? Am I on the right track?
Yes, Madam Chair, Councilwoman, that's absolutely true. It's when I used to call it, I've been doing this for a lot of years, and not just about suicide, but back in the day, up in Colorado, they had what they called contagion. It's like a suicide after a suicide after a suicide. And what they were doing was they were planting a tree in the courtyard when a child took their life. And what they found out was that youth were looking at the tree and going, oh, if I did this, I would be remembered. So they stopped planting the trees, and it stopped the contagion. But contagion means, if it's like one student does it and then another sort of follows suit. So that we call that contagion. So it's you're seeing events happening, and there's lots of reasons why contagion can happen, but it just makes it look sort of like the right thing to do, to take your life by suicide.
Well, thank you for
I
that.
could also add to that, Councillor Basson, if you're okay with that. You know, I think sometimes we inadvertently create contagion. You know, when there's a big story on the news or they show the visuals, you know, sometimes it can glamorize it when that's not the intent, I don't think. I think the intent is to, you know, meet people where they are and acknowledge the loss. But sometimes, you know, inadvertently we create contagion by giving the impression that, oh, if you're not noticed while you're living, then you'll be noticed when you're gone. And we don't want to do that. We want kids to be noticed and be here with us. So, you know, that's one of the things we're learning over time. And certainly Steve Adelsheim helped us understand that when he came and consulted with us.
Madam Chair, one more. Thank you, Ms. Price.
Yes, Councilor Bassan.
So particularly Ms. Price, I've been wanting to soon get in touch with you, but this is like a great forum for me to at least plant this seed. I've been asked to become a stakeholder with the National Sports Shooting Foundation Project Child Safe. And we're looking, I don't know if you've heard about it, but I want to work with APS and other school systems, particularly the counselors. What they do, just to kind of keep it real short and simple, they offer free gun locks through a variety of methods, but free gun locks to anybody. And they work with some suicide prevention techniques. So I would really, really like, probably after the holiday for everyone's benefit, but maybe early next year, if we can talk, see if this is something APS wants to get behind and if we can work together to do something that's tried and true in other cities and states, but that needs to come here to Albuquerque and the counties and the state here. So just Project Child Safe, and I would love to talk to you about it soon.
Absolutely. And you, either Vicky or I, and we can bring other people to the meeting that can talk about it, and we can hear about the project and see how that might fit in APS.
Thank you.
And I would say, Councillor Bassan, you know, I can get behind that project. That sounds awesome. And we know firearms play a big role in suicides in New Mexico. So, you know, gun safety is always something, you know, if kids don't have access, easy access, that's a big part of prevention. And so please contact me. I would love to work on that with you.
Thank you. We have a question from Commissioner Piscotti.
Thank you. You had mentioned that about 10% of high school and maybe also middle school students had attempted suicide. What are the numbers actually on that? How many?
I don't have the actual student numbers for that. Christy, you don't have that either, do you?
The Youth Behavior and Resilience Survey is a survey that's conducted every other year, and that's why Vicki was able to give you some from 2019. We'll be conducting it again in the fall of next year, but it's all APS over samples so that we can get high school and middle school data for Albuquerque Public Schools. Otherwise, it's just state and county data. But you'd have to sort of look at, it's the number of kids that take the survey. And there's a website called NMYRRS, and you can actually look at the county report. And the county report basically is the APS report, because we're pretty much the only, there's a few charters that are included in there, but our data is pretty much the same. And you can look at that report and it will give you all the information. Lots of things are asked. Suicide information is asked as part of the mental health track of that survey. So it can give you more information if you just look it up. And I know the county report was just posted recently for 2019.
Okay. And so kind of piggybacking on what you said about the train tracks, do you know what the most used methods are for attempted or completed suicides in New Mexico?
We don't have that data. The Department of Health has a committee that looks at youth homicide and suicides, and they may have some data on that about how it happens. But what we do know, and I think that, you know, that's why I'm excited about what we just heard about with that program, because we do know that if it's easy access, the chances of the child going through with it. If it's not easy access and they have to think about it, because I know all of you know this, you've been around youth, you've all been teenagers. Teenagers are impulsive. If they have easy access, the chances of them following through on that impulse is much higher. If they don't have easy access, the chances of them getting some support and some help in time is. But we don't know what the number one thing is in New Mexico, but I think we might be able to pull that from some of that data.
I actually can answer that just based on the recent Legislative Finance Committee report that came out. So in their report, they say that 50% of the suicides in New Mexico are from firearms, and then 30% are poisoning and suffocation. So those are the two highest ones. So that comes directly from the report that they just released a couple weeks ago for New Mexico.
Okay, because to follow up on Councilor Bassan, that if we know, what the most used methods are, like firearms, then we can address our communications and interventions to those things. Like they did with the train tracks, which is brilliant. So I think it's good to know what those methods are. And
absolutely. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead.
And it used to be historically that suicide rate for men was typically higher because they use more lethal means like firearms, but that in women would pick different means, but that's actually changed over time. Females are now using almost equally with men firearms when they want, not when they want, sorry, that's a bad term, when they die by suicide. So, I think the firearm issue, and that's why I was so excited when Councilor Bassan brought that up, because I agree with you that we need to know the causes so we know where to start.
Yeah, and I guess it was last year, right? Time is a blur, but I believe I sponsored the Gun Sense, which sounds very similar to the program that Councilor Bassan is talking about. I forgot, I don't know the exact name. It's Gun Sense, and which also gives out the locks and education on gun safety. So yeah, I think we're kind of all thinking along the same lines here. You mentioned the Legislative Finance Committee report, and I know our Margarita Chavez Sanchez from the Department of Behavioral Health participated in that. Margarita, could you just say a little bit about that and our participation in that?
Sure, Madam Chair, Commissioner Piscotti, over about the last 3 to 4 months, the LFC was working on compiling data, meeting with stakeholders to get a good understanding of suicide rates in New Mexico. So they just published this report about 2 weeks-ish ago, maybe less, maybe it was this last week. Again, time is a blur. But we worked very closely. We did a number of interviews. We connected the staff with our providers from which we are currently funding the $1 million for suicide prevention programming, of which APS is one. And so I think it is, to your point, Ms. Price and Commissioner Piscotti, it is a moving target that we're all working to really get a good understanding of the needs and the gaps. And I think that often we think of suicide as being a response to adults, but I think it's a good opportunity to make sure that we're expanding that conversation to focus on youth, because our youth rates are continuing to increase on an annual basis.
Thanks. Yeah, and so, yeah, I'm certainly happy to do whatever I can to help in this endeavor. It seems like it was almost 2 years ago, Elizabeth Armijo and I met, and others met with a group of students from El Dorado. And so I loved their presentation. And so I'm happy to see that that work is continuing. And so, yeah, I'm happy to do whatever I can.
Commissioner Piscotti, I've sent you both the link to the LFC report that was just mentioned, and I sent you the link to the research as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And then we have, I think, our final question from Isaac Padilla.
Madam Chair, I'm just wondering, are there certain times of the year where the risk might be elevated? Maybe we need to be a little bit more vigilant when we're looking at different types of signs?
Certainly, I can take that. Thank you for the question, Mr. Padilla. There have been trends over the years that holidays and winter months are typically a little bit higher statistically. So, around this time of year especially, I think the awareness needs to be addressed a little bit more often. That used to be much higher than it is now, but certainly there's still a significant number in the winter months, in the colder months when the days aren't as long, and also around the holiday season. And Margarita might be able to speak to that a little bit too. I don't know if that was in that report that you did.
Madam Chair, Mr. Padilla, that is correct. We see that actually nationwide, that during the holiday months, suicidality increases significantly, not only because of seasonal affective disorder, but also because of the association with not having lost family members or not having your needs met during the time that we really focus on being with family and having presents and things like that. So traditionally, again, nationwide, the rates increase during the holiday seasons.
Thank you. Councilor Bassan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be quick. I just going with what Mr. Padilla was talking about. Do we know how COVID has affected being at home, all of these children at home? And then I'm hearing, and I don't know, please don't, I know that I am with people that really probably are in the know way more than I am, but something like 12,000 kids are unaccounted for in APS. And how does that affect the potential for the stats to be skewed and actually potentially be even higher than what we just saw?
Dr. Piercy wanted to respond to that.
Yeah, first of all, it's not 12,000 in APS. I want to make sure that's real clear. Okay.
That's good to know.
Thank you. The second thing is the LFC report itself, with that issue. And they had looked at the detailed data from the Department of Health. And actually, if anything, the suicide rate is lower, not higher, but it certainly isn't any higher during this same time periods of the COVID. So, the message that suicides are way up is not correct, but the official data from suicides doesn't really come in until later. In other words, I don't even know if we have official data from later than 2018. We have some information, but the final statistics don't come to us until a little bit later. So we don't really know for sure until it all gets and analyzed and categorized and whatever they do. But the initial data I know from the LFC was that no, it is not higher. In fact, it may actually be just a little lower, even though I think we had a report from the journal that said it was no higher, but so I think that isn't really quite the point of all of this. The point of all of this is that we really do need to know how youth are in fact committing suicide from a systemic point of view. We need to know how we can prevent those kinds of things from happening. And we need to actually get education in place, like for example, the gun things and so forth, to help youth know how they can actually impact this. we found that the youth themselves know this information. They know what's going on with the kids. And they have a lot better capability than even adults to actually talk with their own peers. And that's why the peer-to-peer program in like that we were working with in APS is so important, because they can actually impact their own youth much faster in terms of a response than we can as adults probably. And so those kind of programs are really important. And I know Elizabeth is very well versed in that, as well as Vicki and others, is what we're doing. So just a clarification a little bit.
Thank you.
Can I add real quick? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Can I add something real quick? I just wanted to say something about our peer-to-peer program. So it's new this year. You know, we received a grant from the county, so we were able to establish these peer-to-peer programs in 21 of our schools. And part of the thing that the kids do is they do outreach, and they reach out to community members and students and their friends and everybody they can think of that they can talk to, you know, about mental health awareness, and also incorporate suicide prevention into that. But just this semester, this is the first semester they've been fully up and going, and keep in mind, they're in a virtual setting, but just this semester, they have logged over 10,000 contacts with people, giving them information, letting them know that we're here to help. I mean, what an impressive young group of people for reaching out to so many and getting that message out there. It's impressive. Our data from this program is outstanding.
Thank you. And we have one last question from Councillor Borrego, and then we're going to move on. We have although this is a very important topic, we have 4 more presentations this evening. So Councillor Borrego.
I was just going to make a comment because, first of all, I want to thank everyone for the information and for raising awareness to us, because, you know, we're always so busy with stuff that we forget to think about, you know, certain issues that are happening in our community. Or we don't, I mean, we do think about them, and we just, you know, reprioritize sometimes. But what I was thinking about was how we could help, because that was one of the questions that you asked us, is how could the city and the county help? And, you know, as a counselor, I think one of the things that we can help with is money. And in a normal environment, not COVID, you know, we have funding that goes to our community centers. And I was sitting here thinking, listening to you talk about your peer-to-peer program. And I mean, my God, every time I go to the Don Newton Community Center, you know, there's so many kids there, and I love it. It's just, it kind of energizes you, and you know, gives you that like little inspiration of, yeah, I remember when I was that old once. But I think it'd be really important if well, first of all, get the statistics, and then meet with Carol Pierce, who's actually on this agenda tonight later on, and then see how we could interact, you know, at the community center level, because we all have community centers in our districts, and even the county has community centers as well. And, you know, in the East Mountain area and all over. So there's a network there that's already existing. But the council, I know the council, we can look at the budget that we give to family and community services and other departments, and look to see where maybe we can fill some of those gaps, and possibly create programs that are similar to the peer-to-peer program. So I just wanted to mention that to you as I'm sitting here thinking.
Thank you. And then we're going to go on to Commissioner O'Malley before you respond to that.
Just real quickly, Dr. Piercy, you had said that number is incorrect, 12,000 children who unaccounted, but that number is out there.
That number's for New Mexico.
Okay, well, that's a lot. What numbers do we have?
5,000. 5,000.
Well, okay. Thank you. Appreciate
okay. Thank you. Well, I just want to say I really appreciate this presentation. I do remember us talking about this back in February, and obviously for obvious reasons, lots has happened since then. But I look forward to the continued conversation. Anything we can do as a city to participate and help, I think we're all more than willing. Hearing from the county, it seems like they're also wanting to be engaged in this. So if you want to reach out to Crystal Ortega and, kind of maybe set up some meetings outside of this so that we can talk about what that looks like moving forward, we're more than happy to do that. It's a reality in our community, and here's the exact place where we need to begin to address those types of things. So thank you, appreciate you being here. Then our next item we have is item C. It's a presentation from the Coalition of Safer Albuquerque. Ms. Sarita Nair requested that this matter be placed on the agenda. Casey Quirk from the coalition is with us this evening to provide a presentation, and then of course we can you can call on others from the coalition to speak as well. But I think what I'll do is I'll turn it over to Isaac, who is here on Sarita's behalf, so he can get the presentation started.
Oh, I'd like to go ahead and just have them go ahead and start. We had a conversation with them earlier, and I think this will be an informative presentation.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair Pena, City Councilors, County Commissioners, Madam Manager, and community members. My name is Casey Quirk, and I am a member of the Coalition for a Safer Albuquerque. However, I am going to turn the floor over to my colleague, Maxwell Kaufman, who's going to start us off tonight.
Thanks, Casey, and thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, members, for allowing me and our coalition to have a spot on the agenda. We sincerely appreciate it, and we definitely want to respect your time. Just a little bit about our coalition. Now, some of you may know me as a mental health attorney with the public defenders here in Albuquerque, but I'm not here in that capacity. I'm here to introduce our coalition. Some of you already know about it. The coalition is comprised of a broad spectrum of community members, from lawyers, advocates, community providers, concerned citizens, professors. So it's quite a large coalition. We average around 70 people at our monthly meetings. Some of you may have been aware of that. We are very focused on one thing, and it's to bolster the behavioral health systems locally, with the goal and understanding that there may be some overlap, but to ensure that the behavioral health systems do not cede their function to law enforcement and the courts. And so with that in mind, we would like to be considered, you'd say, a bridge between the city and the county, as they, are aligned with the same vision that we have. So what I would say is, I think at this point, it bears mention that we have been working very closely with the city and county on their initiatives to address the concerns from the community. I have to really tip my hat to Mariela, who's gone above and beyond to gather community input, synthesize it, and to use that to guide ACS. And likewise, Margarita and the county have opened their doors to our input. They've answered our questions and are willing to collaborate on solutions. That is a sign of healthy government, and it deserves recognition. And so, thank you, Margarita, and thank you, Mariela, for allowing us to be a part of the change and considering our input. What I would ask, on behalf of the coalition, is really in line with the presentation that we just heard, is a gaps and needs analysis for this community, commissioned by you all. And along those lines, we would ask for a strategic plan that incorporates the city's response, such as ACS, and a warm handoff to community-based providers. And that's to include those funded by the county and the state. We don't want to forget about UNM. And so those are our main asks here. And with that, I would like to pass it on to my well-respected colleague here to really get into more of the details of our asks. And her name is Rosa, and I believe she's here.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us again, just like Maxwell said. Like Maxwell said, are composed of many different providers throughout the community. Some of us on the committee serve the most underserved populations in the city. And so we have a good eye on what's happening within our communities, what we need, and what the gaps are in some services. So one of the things that we want to make sure that the council's eyes are on and helps us with is making sure that when this ACS department does get rolling, that there are systems in place that they can refer people to, just like you mentioned earlier. And so what we're seeing as providers in the community is that sometimes we have clients that we refer to some of our existing systems, like our CARES campus teams and MATs, but they, for various reasons, aren't able to accept them. And so we know that there's going to be some holes there, and we want to ask, you know, what's going to happen when this ACS team gets rolling and they need to take someone to some of these systems, but they're not being able to access them. So is our CARES campus going to increase access for some of our clients and populations that can't be served? And where are they going to be getting these services for comprehensive assessments and the needs that our most severely mentally ill populations are not getting met yet? So these are some of the questions we have and the things that we want the eyes to stay on for our community.
Thank you. Is that the end of your presentation?
Yeah, I mean, if anybody has any feedback on that, if we can, you know, if anyone has any kind of solutions that exist that we don't know of, or if you know, Margarita or anybody else wants to speak on the CARES campus expanding some of that access or some of these crisis stabilization services, we want to know what there is, how it's going to expand, and how we can help that.
Yeah, I can turn it over to Margarita if she'd like to answer some of that. But you know what I want to say is that I think when we first started with this, Commissioner O'Malley will know we talked back and forth about when we talked about the behavioral tax initially and how it would be implemented. At that time, the city of Albuquerque did a study for a needs gap, right? Exactly what you're asking for, and I think that's kind of been the footprint that we've used moving forward in terms of how to identify those needs. And then after that, there's some subcommittees established. I'm sure you guys are all aware of that. But, you know, through these conversations now, I mean, it's been quite some time. Maybe there is a need to go back to planning and, you know, I could talk to Commissioner O'Malley, and I think the study at the time cost like $35,000. We did it at the city of Albuquerque. And, you know, it's really provided a great roadmap, I think. But, you know, as you begin to implement some of these things, you know, even through my own personal experience, you know, you begin to identify gaps that maybe people aren't seeing, and we obviously need more voices and more public input to address those concerns. ABCGC, I think, is a great landing spot for all those questions and concerns to bring those. So I know we have committees now that are established. I don't know if anybody from your coalition participate in them, but I think that, you know, you should. And I think absolutely maybe Margarita and Mariela, maybe for next, maybe if you guys can work together and maybe identify if these are some of the things that we need to do to move forward, or talk about, you know, what our plan is before now. The only reservation I would have is just that it's taken a long time to get where we're at with the roadmap that we do have. So I would mostly recommend looking at that and then identifying what gaps we may still have in place based on that. So Margarita, Mariela, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Madam Chair, I would just agree with that. I think the CPI report, the CPI analysis, the city county task force meetings, those are all about 5 years old. And it has helped us build the platform and the foundation that we have worked to strive for to date. But a lot of the needs have shifted. The need in the homeless continuum has significantly increased since the time of that analysis. There has been programs that have started and programs that have left the county or the state in general since then. So I think it actually is a good recommendation that we look at, even at conducting a high level gap analysis that maybe doesn't need some, I would prefer something that doesn't take 2 years to spit out a report, but something that could do an analysis of the system as it's been built out since the last gap analysis and help us to really identify those gaps. Because right now we have a couple of venues for which people can communicate those gaps, but those are isolated voices here and there, and we want to really know about the system. And with ACS coming on board and with the behavioral health initiative being built and the crisis triage and expansion on CARES campus and things like that all coming to fruition, the gaps absolutely will shift. And so I think that's in a conversation that we can have offline. Mariela and I can work together, and I'll communicate with the manager on direction, but I think that that's a good recommendation for us to follow.
Madam Chair.
And then Commissioner O'Malley.
Yeah, just real quickly, and I remember those early conversations as well. We were certainly getting criticized for getting the money ahead of what some people felt was a real strong plan. But of course, we couldn't initiate a plan without any money either. So that was one of those issues. But it does make sense to do some reevaluation. There's a lot of things we are doing right. But, as Margarita pointed out, things change, needs have changed. As she mentioned, we have a huge issue with newly homeless. Of course, we've had chronically homeless issues, but now we have folks who are, in real trouble. And it's a result of course, the pandemic has just exacerbated all these issues that we're trying to deal with. So it does make sense to do that, and I support that. That we do, probably work together again as a city and the county, and to fund another, as was pointed out, sort of a deep dive into, what's working and what isn't.
Yes, and I would agree, Commissioner O'Malley. And the only thing that I think that we should really focus on this go around too, with the study, is to make sure that we actually go to the user of these services and make sure that they're a part of, because I think that's where some of the gaps that we're identifying is we have all these systems in place, but we don't know how those systems work to interact with the public when they're trying to access those services and what barriers there are to them. Last meeting we had, I had a person who I was trying to help at UNMH, and they don't do dual diagnosis. So that's a huge, when you're taking them to the UNM psychiatric hospital. So that's huge, right? So if we do not have a place to take somebody who has dual diagnosis, we have to fill that gap. I mean, that's a huge gap that we have. So anyway, with that, I know we have a hand up by Casey Quirk, but before I go to you, I'm going to defer to our counselor, Cynthia Borrego.
Thank you, Counselor and Commissioner. I agree with you. I think we need to do some sort of an analysis, and we need to look at putting some funding together to get that done. And I mentioned this at our last meeting, also had someone, and I heard Rosa Gallegos mention, and I heard this about disabled people. And I think it's important that, we consider that population, because there are a lot of people that are disabled that are trying to get help. What I was going to say is that I mentioned at our last meeting, I tried to take someone to Matt's who was disabled, and they wouldn't take them because they were extremely disabled and they really needed help. And, so that person just probably, ended back on the street. And unfortunately, those are the kinds of stories that we hear over and over again. So I'm not going to take any more time, Counselor, but thank you.
Thank you. Casey Quirk.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to recognize you and Commissioner O'Malley because you both were very involved with initiating the effort to get the 1/8 cent tax approved, gross receipts tax. And I was a provider at the time at Crossroads for Women, and the women of Crossroads for Women, who at that time were homeless and formerly incarcerated women with dual diagnosis, engaged in a phone banking effort to contact community members about that gross receipts tax initiative. And they did that through the program that's now called Bold Futures, which was Young Women United. And it was stunning to me, the stories that the women came back with from talking to members of our community about how deep and desperate the needs were to meet the needs of people in our community with mental health and addiction disorders. And at that time, the default venue to send them to was MDC. And, I just want to encourage that we really need to think about having, being a community that has a place for our deepest need individuals who cannot be turned away because they are too difficult or too disordered or whatever the case may be, but a place that, is willing and has the capacity to hold space for them while they get treatment and services, because those oftentimes are the folks that have ended up at MDC. And, working from a trauma-informed and trauma-responsive perspective, MDC is the last place for somebody with a mental health disorder to go. It just increases their trauma experience. So I know, Madam Chair and Commissioner O'Malley, that you understood this back then. You probably even understand it better now, and that we do need to come together as a community and look at, how are we utilizing our resources, and oftentimes what feels like limited resources, to best serve the folks here, and not have it be okay for anyone not to have access to services to meet their needs. I think at this point, we just can't allow that to be acceptable. And it would be wrong for me if I didn't also acknowledge the fact that initiatives like the ACS, which although were initially the engagement and conversation about started a couple of years ago, really went into overdrive with the killing of George Floyd. And we have to remember that we have members of our community that are extremely disenfranchised as a result of race and class and sometimes gender or religion era. And that has to always be taken into account when we're developing our service protocols and procedures. And again, our coalition is hoping to work to reduce encounters with law enforcement, increase encounters with service providers, and support the creation of a continuum of care of services that will meet as many needs as possible in our community. And I want to thank all of you for allowing us this time and platform to share a little bit about what we're about, and we're hoping to continue to be a part of the solution. So thank you.
Sorry about that. We have several emails about your request. I don't know if you have a formal letter, but if you do, if you can send that to us so that we can kind of digest it and see what we can do with Commissioner O'Malley and myself, I know. And thank you for that, because it was a long haul, even just to get to where we got with the quarter-cent tax. Me and Commissioner O'Malley kind of tossed that back and forth to see who would could potentially pass it. I tried initially at the city and I was not successful. And then Commissioner O'Malley, thank God, decided that, she thought she could get it passed at the county and did. And here we are today with, lots of support and advocacy advocates and people who have been part of this entire process. And that's why I say, yeah, you're probably right. And thanks for coming this evening. It's probably important that we kind of relook at that, right? Because a lot of time has passed. So I think we're going to end it with one more question from Isaac Padilla on behalf of the mayor's office.
Madam Chair, Ms. Gallego Zamora, I have a question. You had mentioned that you were saying that they wanted to know if there was an increased access to the CARES campus. Do you have an idea of how much more access, or if the providers are saying that more access is needed?
Would like to answer that.
You know, as a provider in the community, I know that we do need more access, and we are experiencing sending clients, just like Councilor Borrego said, to some of our existing entities, but they're being turned away for exact reasons, just like she mentioned. The disability, the needs are so high that the existing systems, such as the CARES unit or MATS, are not able to meet those needs right now. And so, you know, we do have some specific examples, but we also just have our own experiences of trying to refer people. And in some recent meetings, we have heard from the county, you know, Charlie and Marguerite, that there is plans to expand those services. And so we always just want to be aware, and we want to hear what they have to say about how those are going to expand. When can we start referring more people? Who can refer more people? What's that going to look like, and what's the timeline?
Okay, well, thank you. Maxwell, I can't see your last name, so I'm just going to call you. Oh, it's Kaufman, sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to kind of harken back to the idea that this coalition really stands for that the criminal justice system, whether it's the jail, law enforcement, or the courts, should not be the front door to access to services. And I think we all may agree on that. And what I see in my practice is that a lot of clients need access to the service, but they only get it after they've been involved with the criminal justice system. And so I think an example of what we would like to see with collaboration of ACS and the county CARE campus, like for example, if they were to have a streamlined referral, process to the crisis stabilization unit, to detox, without going through many onerous hoops. That would be one example of an improvement in this area. And we do, want to remind, our ask about a strategic plan, to include timelines, responsible parties, a document, commissioned by you all, that we can refer to and hold each other accountable to. We see real value in that. So, with that, I want to thank you all again. And I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So again, I would refer everyone to Krista Ortega, if you can get that information to her, and then we can have a conversation about a plan moving forward with this initiative as well. So thank you for being here. So next we have a presentation by Kids Empowered. Commissioner O'Malley requested this matter be placed on the agenda. So Commissioner O'Malley, I'll defer to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it has already been a long evening. And to be honest with you, if I had really thought about how many items were on the agenda, maybe I would have put this off till January. But I appreciate everyone hanging in there. This will be a presentation by I think Julia Fitzsimmons is with us. She contacted me. This is a small group of people, nonprofit, that are working on getting this message out to children, and this is regarding issues of child abuse and how to prevent and stop abuse, which of course is just unfortunately gotten really worse as a result of this pandemic, which is not surprising. Julia, did you just want to start if you're on?
Thanks for having us. I'm going to turn it over to Sheila Giannoni and Diane Berger.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley, for inviting us, and thank you for your support. I also would like to acknowledge Councilor Borrego and Julianne Baca for their support also. My name is Sheila Giannoni, and I am a co-founder of kidsempowered.org. Please make a note of the website and check us out. Our mission is to teach children to recognize, prevent, and stop abuse. I've been devoted to the issue of prevention of child abuse for many years because of two personal experiences. The first was when I was a young child. I was sexually abused by a family member, someone I trusted and someone I loved. I was told not to tell anyone because it would hurt my mother, so I didn't tell. I was frightened and felt alone. If you were to look at photos of me when I was a young child, you could tell that something was wrong, but no one asked. Even if I had been asked, I wouldn't have known what to say. It was not until I was middle-aged that I told for the first time. A weight was lifted from me, and I decided to make some changes. I went back to school and earned a degree in social work and looked for a place where I thought I could make a difference. That led me to my second experience. And that was working for All Faiths, formerly All Faiths Receiving Home. I worked there for many years and witnessed the effects of abuse on children and on their families. And I learned how trauma affects the developing brain of children. I frequently asked about why primary prevention of child abuse was not provided. Primary prevention is defined as any intervention that prevents child abuse before it occurs. During my last year at All Faiths, before I retired, I met with parents and caregivers who acknowledged through their tears that they had talked with their children about stranger danger, but never talked with them about the stark realities of child abuse. The fact is, the vast majority of children are abused by adults and older children. These are people they know and trust. And of course, this includes family members. Just today, there's an article in the Albuquerque Journal about the 9-year-old girl who was raped and killed by an older cousin. I learned over the years that children often normalize their abusers' behaviors. For them, it's what adults and older children do to them, whether it's physical abuse, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect. It's what they know. The accumulation of my experiences was a spark for me to think how we can do things differently, how we can empower children to learn how to protect themselves. In other words, primary prevention of child abuse before children are abused. Education is the key to prevention.
Hi, I'm the other co-founder of Kids Empowered. I'm Diane Alonji Berger. One of my main incentives for starting the program was the 7 years that I spent on the New Mexico Child Abuse and Neglect Citizen Review Board, reviewing hundreds of child abuse cases. It became very clear to me there that although there are many caring people that are helping families and victims of abuse, we just are not going to see a significant improvement in this area until we start to focus on prevention. Just like we can't prevent suicide in silos, it must also be a community effort to prevent the crisis of child maltreatment. I also helped produce a local documentary by Chris Schuler called Everyone's Business, which features nationally renowned child abuse expert Victor Veith, who said that almost any social problem in our community can be traced back to adverse childhood experiences. So Kids Empowered is one specific way that we can reduce and prevent this trauma. Again, suicide was discussed earlier. Personal safety education like ours will absolutely help prevent suicide as well. Next slide, please.
So kidsempowered.org is a grassroots movement to address the alarming child abuse statistics in New Mexico. We are a group of experienced and passionate volunteers who have completed a vigorous training in an evidence-based, age-appropriate child abuse prevention education curriculum, which is used throughout the country. The curriculum aligns beautifully with New Mexico Health Education Common Core standards. So it is not a counseling curriculum, but an educational one.
The program involves two 45-minute age-appropriate lessons for kids in kindergarten through 5th grade. We use this interactive style where we teach about all forms of child abuse, neglect, and bullying. We emphasize that it is an adult's job to keep kids safe, but some adults don't. So we need their help in protecting themselves. We help each student identify at least 2 safe adults in their own life who they can talk to. We discuss internet safety, and we teach 5 safety rules, which you can see there on the screen. The research is clear about the importance of repetition for learning, and that's why we believe it's vital for kids to receive these lessons at each grade level so they can understand and internalize the information at each developmental stage. It is our understanding that currently many Albuquerque kids may be formally learning about this topic only in kindergarten. But just like reading, writing, and arithmetic, they need to hear and practice it many times for it to truly stick. So we deliver our lessons to children in every elementary grade, kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Final thing I want to mention is that Lieutenant Sanders from APD has confirmed that child abuse is even more of a concern during this time of remote learning, as victims are trapped with their abusers. So this is not a time to back down on our prevention efforts. If anything, we need it more than ever. Next slide, please.
The Albuquerque Community Foundation serves as our fiscal sponsor. Actually, when the president of the foundation learned of our project, he said this is a no-brainer and offered the foundation to be our fiscal sponsor. We have collaborated with several agencies, including the Boys and Girls Club of Albuquerque and Rio Rancho, the City of Albuquerque Community Centers, excuse me, summer programs, Horizons Albuquerque, United Way, the Albuquerque Police Department, and we're looking forward to partnering with the Bernalillo County Parks and Rec program. We are always looking for more revenues to deliver our lessons. So if any of you have ideas for us, we would gratefully welcome them. And of course, we're open to questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Commissioner O'Malley.
Yes, I want to thank you as well. I did mention that they had, I'd been given this presentation about a week ago, and they were, asking the individuals who just spoke were asking, how could they reach out to the other commissioners and counselors? And I said, well, this is probably as we mentioned before, is a good venue where many of us are here at the same time. And this is, of course, is a very critical issue in our community. It has been for, forever, it seems like. And unfortunately, as I mentioned, this has, been a very tough year for families and for children, and especially for children. And we just need to, it's just one of those things to remind us to all be vigilant. Again, I was very fortunate to have very kind and loving parents. I didn't find out until I was close to 40 that my mother actually was raped. And when she was 17, she went to Seattle to work in the airline industry. And that was at the time during the World War II when they were recruiting women to work. And she was actually dragged into an alley and raped by a police officer. It was actually in the paper at the time. And with the last name of Romero, she was definitely instantly put in this sort of really awful position, and was it was pretty awful for her. And I didn't know about it until later. I knew that something had happened to her, but I wasn't sure what. And then all the shame that came with that. She was so ashamed, which, I just didn't understand. Why would you be ashamed? You did nothing wrong. And I just remember feeling very angry on her behalf. And fortunately, as an adult, she, had some, what do you call it? She was raised by a loving family too. So she had that at least to help her get through that. Mm-hmm. But a lot of these children they don't have anything like that. And so we we need to see them. We need to be vigilant. These are all our children, really. This is our community. We need to help them. So thank you for the presentation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. We have a question from City Councilor Cynthia Borrego.
Thank you, Commissioner O'Malley, for sharing that very touching story. There's a lot of people out there, a lot of women and men who have been abused in their lifetimes and don't come forward, and it follows them throughout their lives. And but I did want to tell, because I did meet with all of these amazing women who are working on these issues, and I wanted to mention to you that I had a conversation with Senator Linda Lopez this weekend, and also Representative Joy Garrett. Over the weekend, we all had a conversation, not together, but I sometimes you catch people when you can, you know how that is. And I had mentioned to you that I was a sponsor of the Memorial for Crimes Against Children and increasing the penalties. And that was 2 years ago. And last year, because the session was short, it was sort of, it was considered, but it didn't go anywhere. And so Senator Lopez indicated to me that she is going to bring this issue back up again at the legislature, and that and I just sent her my office just sent her the memorial again. So I think that you may want to touch base with her and see if, because the council did pass that unanimously, and it is on the record, and I'm happy to send that to any of you, that would like a copy. And I don't know, I thought maybe we had sent it to you, but in case we didn't.
Yes, you did.
Yeah, so just if you can get a hold of Senator Lopez, I think this is really great timing on this. And, I'm happy to help you in any way that I can. I'm not sure we're all going to be in Santa Fe this year, but, counselors and commissioners, we're certainly talking to our representatives on a daily basis during the legislature. So once that bill number has been assigned, if you can let us know, we can certainly help you however we can.
Thank you with that. Thank you. We'll follow up.
Thank you. Thank you for being here, and thank you, Commissioner O'Malley, for sharing that story. That must be a difficult thing for your poor mother who's no longer with us. So anyway, we will move on now to item E, a report from Carol Pierce and Margarita Sanchez Chavez regarding the Homeless Coordinating Council. Commissioner Piscotti and others, you may want to participate in this as well. I think you're part of it.
Yes, thank you, Council Chair Pena, as well as board members. Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. And we'll go to our next slide. So what we thought we would do tonight, there's two areas. We want to provide some committee highlights. As you all will recall, there's 5 committees that have been created out of the Homeless Coordinating Council. And I'm going to hit a few highlights along with Margarita and others that want to add, as well as we want to talk about the whole COVID system of care response. And I just want to say why we include that in this update is I think if there is one silver lining in COVID in this pandemic, as we are coming together to really respond to the needs of vulnerable people, it's highlighting opportunities for collaboration. It's also highlighting some of the gaps. So we really see that as very key as it relates to the Homeless Coordinating Council, which is really looking at that system of care for caring for people without homes. Next slide, please. So the first highlight I'd like to talk about is from the Gateway Facilities Committee. And this is a slide you've seen before, but I wanted to provide that, co-chairs and the committee purpose. Next slide, please. And just to acknowledge that Commissioner O'Malley is with us tonight and one of the co-chairs there. So one of the high impact strategies that was mentioned at the recent Homeless Coordinating Council meeting was the idea to make an offer on Gibson Medical Center. And what is really so key about that are several things. There is this idea and the commitment that multiple gateways are needed as entry points to get people connected to emergency shelter and other services, and ultimately to housing and the best option that meets their needs. And right now I want to really thank our city councilors that are here, because $5 million was approved in the recent city budget for a triage and shelter, as well as the county. Would really like to thank the county commissioners and county manager Julie Morgus-Baca for the recent $1 million bond that passed in the recent election. And then prior to that, we had the $14 million bond that was placed in the 2019 election. So, so with that, I do want to say that at Gibson, that's about 572,000 square feet of opportunity. It is currently being used right now as part of the COVID system. And I'll talk about that a little bit when we talk about the COVID response. I also wanted to include the West Side Emergency Housing Center. So as we look at multiple gateways, that will remain a gateway for our community. While it still is 20 miles outside of town, it's instrumental right now in our COVID response. And so I know there's a facilities committee tomorrow, and they'll be hearing some more details about this. But with our CARES dollars, we're spending close to $1 million on some improvements out there, because this will be part of the network of services for the foreseeable future. And even if we didn't need those emergency beds, it will be a facility that in the event of an emergency, we would need that really in the inventory. Next slide, please. So the other highlight is the Homeless Service Committee, and just want to acknowledge Commissioner Piscotti is one of the co-chairs. And I so apologize. Rodney McNeese would have been here tonight, and he couldn't be here as our UNM representative, as well as Margarita is a is a committee member. So next slide, please. So one of the things that was highlighted at the recent Homeless Coordinating Council meeting was that the request to evaluate impacts and benefits on existing homeless services as well as proposed sites. So on this committee, one of the charges is to look at what is the impact on neighborhoods, and there are neighborhood members on this committee. And so several homeless committee council meetings ago, the question came up about where UNM could participate with their research eyes and lens. So UNM has offered to use their research arm and evaluation to help the Homeless Coordinating Council look at the impacts. And so that's something that we'll be hearing more about in the future. The other thing that was mentioned at this week's Services Committee was the idea of HopeWorks, potentially working with HopeWorks, who approached the group to talk about what they could do to really help address some of these gaps, including emergency shelter, but really want to acknowledge that HopeWorks is providing a lot of the services that are identified that are important in the community. Next slide, please. So again, there's a housing committee, and I've got the co-chairs there and the committee purpose. Next slide, please. In the same vein as that other request on looking at impact on neighborhoods and working with our partner UNM for evaluation and research, a request has been made to look at existing data, to look at all the various options for permanent housing that's really needed, because one size doesn't fit all. So some steps have begun to be taken there. And a presentation was recently made to a group called Hive at UNM. It may be an acronym, but I'm sorry, I don't know what it stands for. But this is a group made up of a lot of UNM professors. And that was the first step. And this was Mark Childs, one of the co-chairs, recommendations. And so that was the starting point. And then there will be further action taken to look at what are the variety of options needed for housing, because a scattered site, which is really what we primarily do, we as a community, it does not work for all. And Margarita can also speak to, we have a wonderful joint project right now between the city, county, and actually HopeWorks and Yes Housing that is 42 beds, permanent supportive housing, 42 beds for people that need it in one location. A great example that is one of the very effective strategies. So we hope that this research project will help identify many other different models and some of the pieces that go with that. Next slide, please. I want to highlight for the youth housing continuum, again, just like all the others, co-chaired by a city, county, UNM person, and the committee purposes there. Next slide, please. So one of the highlights for this is to speak to a youth housing assessment. Actually, this group is quite on fire and very excited working together. And I want to add that CYFD as a state partner has been there actively participating. So what has come out of this is actually CYFD has agreed to address one of the gaps that was identified with this group. And that was we need a true count of youth or young adults, 15 to 25, who are experiencing homelessness. They're typically very undercounted. We don't know where they are. They're hidden. We have great service providers doing great work out there. But working with PIRE, the Pacific Institute for Research and Evaluation, they have a scope of work to do this work for our community, for our entire county. And this should be completed in about 6 months. And what's really great about it is CYFD is funding it. So there's a lot of excitement. This will provide some really needed and important information for this age in our community, 15 to 25. Next slide, please. So I'm switching to the second part of the presentation, and this is the COVID system of care. So again, the reason I'm including this, it's part about the whole system, us coming together, and what are we learning? So right now, as of yesterday, we are providing, and that is the city, the county, UNM, the state, are providing shelter for about 739 people. To put that in perspective, the West Side, on the coldest of nights in the winter, we could house about 450 people there. Doesn't happen a lot, but in the winter, we can get up to that capacity. Now, we can't do that in COVID times. It's de-densified. So 739 is a lot of folks. They are spread over 5 hotels. 2 of those are COVID positive hotels and 3 are wellness hotels. And I just say with deep gratitude to Margarita and County Morgus Baca and the commissioners, that one is being staffed by the county and just really an important addition to this system. The WEC is West Side, currently open 24/7, and the Albuquerque Opportunity Center, which is an existing provider, they also, we're working on expanding them to 24/7. We did in the beginning of the pandemic. We're needing to do that again to be a piece of this puzzle. I really think it's important to acknowledge what I've got here on the screen is county, city, and UNM, this piece of the puzzle, but there are about 400 more additional emergency beds, very important, that providers are doing. Brothers of the Good Shepherd, Baird House, and others. Now, what's really, really important on this slide is of those 739 people, 151 are children under the age of 18. Now, that's kind of a mind blower for a lot of us. In any normal year, we might see 25 children out at the West Side. And we know, I think what we're learning, we are learning so much in this. We've always known that families, just like young adults, are very undercounted in our homeless counts that we do, like we participate with all other communities, and it's coming up in January. Often families are doubled up. They're with relatives. They're living in places that are maybe unfit for habitation, and they're living in their cars. So at this time, we have the 151 people of children, under 18. And it has been a huge partnership with APS. And I'm so glad that we have so many APS board members that are part of the ABCGC. We've been working very closely with Title I to get those families connected. And I think it's important to know that these referrals for families are coming from many different places. And not all through Title I. Some of them are. Some of them weren't part of the Title I program. They're coming from CYFD. They're coming from Albuquerque Health Care for the Homeless. They're coming through the West Side Emergency Housing Center, because that would have been normally where they are. But we're grateful that so much action is being taken given this time to make sure the kids have access to Wi-Fi, to get their schoolwork done, to have access to case managers, and the whole piece to get an avenue to housing, as well as there's quite a big lift being done with county, city, others to make sure these families have some special things happening over the holidays. I want to pause there before I go to these last few slides and really give Margarita a chance to weigh in, because she's been a big part of this and it's so important.
Madam Chair, members of the ABCGC, thank you, Carol. I just want to echo what Carol said. I think, we're working collaboratively. We ensured that there is a Department of Behavioral Health staff member and a BHI subcommittee member on each one of these subcommittees in order to really ensure that the conversations are not happening in silos. So our BHI housing committee member, or actually committee chair, participates in these committees to ensure that those conversations are parallel and that we are continuing to work to, again, mitigate the silos and work collaboratively and cohesively in addressing these gaps in the community. The COVID systems of care is really important to recognize that we've been at this for 9 months. And the needs have shifted, right? The further we've gotten into this pandemic, the greater the needs have become for families who have lost jobs, lost housing, lost access to supports, and lost loved ones. And so it's really been important that we've been, again, collaborative in this. As Carol mentioned, the county is operating one of the wellness hotels. And just as of this week, we have dedicated Department of Behavioral Health case management staff. So there's case management staff at that wellness hotel 5 days a week, with the priority of identifying long-term housing supports and social supports for all of the families, right? It's really mostly families in that wellness hotel. Another piece that's important to mention is that we worked vigorously and collaboratively between the state, the city, and the county to issue emergency procurements for a collaboration with Central Desert Behavioral Health Hospital to operate a COVID unit. And so they've had a COVID unit in place for inpatient behavioral health patients, as well as inpatient substance use disorder patients, or those needing detox and access to those types of supports. And so we are providing, both the city and the county are providing funds from our CARES dollars to support patients who do not have another funding mechanism. So if they're uninsured or don't have access to funds to cover the cost of that treatment, they are receiving that treatment, which is now being billed to the city and the county through the end of the year. As we know, our CARES dollars have a time limit. And then beyond that, the state will take on the costs at that time. And so I think that is a huge gap that we've identified for some time, and through the collaboration have been able to mitigate that gap. So I think there's quite a bit more, but I will leave it at that and take it back to you, Carol.
Okay, thank you, Margarita, so much. Next slide, please. So these last few slides, I just wanted to highlight some of the barriers and some of the solutions. So I think everybody knows we come together 11 o'clock every day. We call ourselves the Corona Crushers, city, county, state, and all of our nonprofit providers. Roughly, we have about 25 to 30 people on that call to get the census and to problem solve together. So the first one, what we really care a lot about is the pathway to housing, whatever is the right fit for folks. And so as we get this census, now we're asking, how many people have we connected to housing? And if not, what are some of the barriers? One of the barriers that came up is in this pandemic, our Social Security offices are closed. And they were asking people to send their original driver's license and their original Social Security card in the mail to get the next step through Social Security. So of course, that's a big red flag. We all went, oh, wait, none of us want to put those original documents in the mail. So we've got a team working on breaking down some of those barriers. And as of today's 11 o'clock call, we learned that there was a meeting with the local office in Social Security. They did let us know that that comes from a higher level, not just locally in directing them on what to do in their office, but we talked about what the barriers are for our community, and they're willing, we have now a contact to really work through some of those obstacles and see what we can change and do it on a case-by-case basis. The next barrier and concern was help for high medical acuity homeless folks coming out of the ER. So earlier when I talked about Gibson Medical Center, really important that through this partnership with the state, and the state is leasing space over at Gibson, put a lot of money into that facility to have it ready to go as overflow. I think as of today, there were 5 patients on the 5th floor. Those all but one of them had come out as inpatients from our hospitals, whether it be UNM, Press, Loveless, to de-intensify our hospitals, but these are folks that couldn't go home. We have identified that we needed to open up the criteria to have people from the emergency room be eligible to access that service and not just from an inpatient unit. So we had the first patient go over there yesterday coming from the ER. That it was very significant in this 5 hotel system because we have a lot of direct admits from the ER. Sometimes that works, but if they have higher medical needs, it's much more appropriately to be placed at Gibson Medical Center. So we're really grateful for this opening of the criteria, and that's just late breaking news as of this week. We also, as we're in this pandemic, we've been worried about more space for COVID positive people without homes. So at this moment, we have explored the use of one of the buildings on site. It's called Building 11 on Gibson Medical Center campus as a potential overflow for COVID positive people. We are teeing that up so we can open it if need be, depending on what's happening with the pandemic. Next slide, please. And I've only got 2 more. So another example, but Margarita already covered this, the really good work with Central Desert to really have a place for people who their benefits may have run out, or they might be uninsured and they are needing psychiatric care. So really important work that Margarita already talked about. We also know that there has been a gap for people who are COVID positive. They don't have homes and they may be going through some alcohol withdrawal. That's been a gap. Rodney, again, couldn't be here tonight, but we've had one meeting. We've got a second one scheduled with the chair of the Department of Psychiatry on what we can do to really use telemedicine more. And also we had some good work with ASAP, which is a great UNM resource that is across from one of our hotels, really do some problem solving there. So we're in the midst of working on that solution. The need for long-term care for people with medical conditions without homes is very paramount. And the case manager, the leaders in our hospitals talk about that a lot. We had a really good presentation this week from Genesis Healthcare. And one of the things that we're learning is sometimes people have to have like a several-day stay in a hospital in order to have the payments aligned to go into long-term care. Some of those you might call them barriers, have been removed in this pandemic. But we're creating a partnership with Genesis. There are several facilities in our community where people would be eligible for long-term care. But that was very, it's a barrier, and it's a solution that we're continuing to work on. Last slide, please. Last one, connection to case management from the wellness hotels. And Margarita talked about what's happening in Wellness 3. It's great. And we've got those kind of community partners coming together in all the wellness hotels to really try to almost do a fast track to housing. And so that's a big team effort that's happening, that we're monitoring the progress there. And I think the last slide is just a thank you and to see if there might be questions.
Thank you for that presentation. Are there any questions from any of the members? Isaac Padilla.
Madam Chair and Margarita, I had a quick question. You talked about the wellness hotel for families. So my sister, she's a teacher, and she called me a couple days ago about a family that is potentially going to become homeless. But I was wondering, how many families are you actually serving, and is there room? Like, can I refer my sister to it or something like that?
Madam Chair, Mr. Padilla, there is a process set up. There's a flow chart, a very robust flow chart that has the clear directives on how folks can access those supports. It's very common that we receive referrals from APS. The county is actually funding a different hotel for APS McKinney-Vento families who have been unhoused due to COVID. That, unfortunately, again, that's funded through CARES dollars, and so there's funding through the end of the month. However, there is a process, and I know, Carol, we can share that with everyone to make sure everyone has a copy of the referral process. And unfortunately, the availability to these motel vouchers kind of goes up and down, right? In the different hotels, right? It shifts when people are needing housing, if they're needing short-term, if they're needing long-term. And Carol, you can actually speak to better than I can the capacity right now, availability.
Yes, Margarita and Chair, Council Chair. Right now there is room available in the system. And when we're asked that question, it changes all the time. We do have small outbreaks at West Side, then those folks are needing to go to the hotel. If we have older people with chronic conditions, we try to get those into the wellness hotel. When we get people housed, that creates more room. So right now there is availability, but most of those hotels, I think there were like 5 rooms available in the wellness hotel as of this morning, and there is room out at the West Side. The families are the ones that we're very concerned about, and we've got, as we said, how many families we've got. I think part of what's created so many families coming to the surface is they were housed in places that weren't the best, maybe not appropriate. And having the opportunity of a hotel room as opposed to going to the shelter and to have your own bathroom and maybe a microwave and the privacy of an own room, I think we're just finding that is just working so much better for all people. But there is a system, and we do use our emergency operations centers. We do work with our providers, which includes Title I. And why, I know I've answered this question a few times, we don't ask people or publicize where these hotels are because we don't want people just to walk up to the hotel, because there's a medical intake and a screening process.
Thank you. I think we have a question from Councilor Borrego.
Oh, I just wanted to mention to the group, the other day I was I was invited to listen to a White House Office of Intergovernmental Affairs phone call, and it was a discussion about the COVID vaccine. And what was really interesting, and I think that this is really interesting for all of us, is Pfizer has come out with we've all seen that on TV and excited about that. but there's 3 other companies that are working on vaccines. One is Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and I forget the other one. It starts with an M, Madeira. Is that right? Anyway, what's interesting is the Johnson & Johnson one is a one-time vaccine. And we're supposed to hear about that maybe next month. That's what they were talking about on this phone call. And the other thing that really struck me when Carol was talking is, the difficulty in getting people who have alcohol abuse and have COVID getting tested. They were also talking about I guess a kit that will eventually be released where you can take your own, I guess you can get your own test. You can take the test at home as to whether or not you have COVID, and then you can mail it back in. And there's an app apparently that you can download onto your phone. But I thought I just mentioned that to the group because that was a really interesting conversation that they were having.
Thank you. And no more questions. We're going to move on. So I think the next item is we're on old business now, and we have continuing behavioral health initiative update. Ms. Margarita, one more time.
Sure, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the ABCGC. I will keep this as high level as we can. The biggest announcement that we have since the last ABCGC meeting is that we have officially announced at the last Bernalillo County Commission meeting that we have awarded $10 million to a number of providers in the community. It's one-time dollars over 3 years for an expansion of behavioral health services, capital investments, and startups of new behavioral health programs. And so you all may recall back in November, we brought that concept to the ABCGC, or even before November, because we issued the award in November of last year. And so we are happy to finally get those dollars out into the community. All but one of the agreements has of the providers has a PO issued, and they are beginning to move on the utilization of those dollars to award services. So our website has a link to the videos. Commissioner Cawley suggested that we get video snippets from each of our providers because we're in a non-traditional space right now where we can't exactly do a press conference and highlight the work that they're doing, but they've each done a little video snippet about the work that they're doing and how they'll be using those dollars. So I think that's good information for all of you to know in reference to the conversation that we're having about addressing gaps in the community. And again, this is part of that larger systems conversation that we're working to build out. I do want to mention something that came up in the earlier conversations about really having a good understanding of what's happening in the system. And Commissioner Cawley actually is who brought this thought into our minds, is that there is a program in place right now. It's called Open Beds, and it's operated by the state of New Mexico. And Open Beds works with providers in the community and has a real-time database that updates the amount of bed availability in the system. So for example, we on the CARES campus daily upload a bed availability into that system. Now that system is very much built around kind of a medical model. It's very much medical systems, but we are hoping to approach the state to request that they expand that, because I think that is part of the system improvement that we need to address for providers in the community to have real-time access to availability of services, right? So if we could look at even shelter beds that are available, detox beds, long-term support treatment beds that are available, and a case manager could log in at any one given time and say, oh, there's availability here. I'm going to work to get this client set up to be referred over to this program. Because I think that's what happens a lot, is that folks work really hard, our case managers, our peers work really hard to get their clients connected to services, and then for whatever reason that service is not available. And so I just raised that because I think it's related to all of the conversations that have been had today, and it's just something that we'll continue to work on, because I think if the state is willing to expand an existing platform it prevents us from reinventing the wheel and starting from scratch and doing something that's duplicative of something that maybe can just be expanded. So I will hopefully have an update at the next ABCGC on how that conversation is going. But I think, again, it is a good opportunity, and Commissioner Crawley will keep your name on that one as your suggestion moving forward. But again, I think it is an opportunity for us to work on systems improvement and not just funding programs in silos, but ensuring that the larger system is working collaboratively. I have, since the last topic, the manager and I have been texting back and forth, and again, it has been on my radar to renew the gap analysis conversation. And so I will commit at this meeting to have an update by the next ABCGC on where we are and moving forward on that process. And so Mariela, I'll be reaching out to you and we can work collaboratively to see how we can collaborate, and Carol, you as well, so that we can move forward on identifying formally the additional gaps or new gaps that may be in the system after all that we've built out up to date.
Thank you, Margarita. Isaac, you had a question?
Yeah, just Madam Chair and Ms. Chavez Sanchez, just going back to the previous, I apologize, but I was just concerned because you had said that it's CARES dollars. I was wondering how many families are being helped at that the wellness hotel, and then what happens to the families at the end of the month when CARES money can no longer be spent?
Madam Chair, Mr. Padilla, the CARES dollars are, the county CARES dollars are currently not at the Wellness Hotel. They're at a different hotel. We launched the program in May, and it's for McKinney-Vento families that are referred through APS that are housed unhoused due to COVID. And so they have since May received 3-month vouchers, and during that 3-month period, they're working very closely with our case managers to identify long-term housing options. So since the start, all but one family has been able to identify long-term supports. And so that is the plan. So all of our families that know that the vouchers end at the end of December in that separate motel, this is not the wellness motel, but in the separate motel, all have long-term plans and will be transitioned out of the motel into that long-term sustainable plan.
And so how many families have been helped, and how many are there now? Like, I'm just wondering if we need to do anything to help. Like, do we know the total number of families so that?
So I don't have the total number in front of me, but I do have the most recent report of how many families are in this separate motel now. I think we have 6 active families in the hotel right now. And so I can get a number of how many families have been helped from the beginning of that program. This, again, just to note, this is separate from the wellness motel. And so the wellness hotel, it's my understanding, and Director Pierce, you can speak to this better than I can, but it's my understanding that will continue beyond the December 30th date.
Okay. Director Pierce, I always do that.
Can you repeat that again, just Margarita, just make sure I know what you're referencing?
Oh, I'm sorry, Director Pierce from the city.
No, thank you, Council Chair and Director Chavez Sanchez. Yes, so with the hotels that we talked about earlier, the wellness hotels, our plan, in fact, we're working on that very diligently right now as CARES Act sunsets the end of December. We are developing a plan how we can use some of our emergency solutions grant dollars through HUD to fund those and figure out how we transition and how long those will be open, but they will remain for the foreseeable months. Especially what drives us here is the creation of a vaccine. And I did want to add, when Councilor Borrego mentioned about some of the vaccines and the testing, one of the game changers for us was the availability of the COVID rapid test out at the West Side. And I'm quite excited that I did approve an article today that will probably be published by the Center for Disease Control, that our community is really kind of setting the standard on what it means to really care for people who are homeless and how the effective use of a rapid test. So we'll make sure we share that with everybody, but it's a game changer. Even though we know you need to be symptomatic to be most effective on these mini outbreaks that we have, you can quickly identify people, get them into isolation, the correct space, and really keep people as safe as possible. Thanks.
Thank you, Director, and sorry, Dr. Piercy. Anyway, so if that is it and there's no other questions, we're going to move on to item B under old business, which is opportunities for subcommittees to address the commission. And I don't know if we have anyone present to speak on this item.
Madam Chair, we don't have anyone today.
Okay. So then we're on item 6, other business. Does anyone have any other business? Well, with that, I just really want to say that, you know, I know ABCGC is a committee, really, it's an information sharing committee. You know, we don't have any real votes other than what we take back to our respective councils and commissions to address. But I just really think that, you know, all the work that we do at the city and what you do at the county in terms of, you know, the behavioral health initiative, it's just some of the most important work we've done just historically, and then especially now during a time of COVID. And I just want to say that even though we do have hiccups and we do have gaps that we continue to need to address, I think that both agencies are just doing a phenomenal job in trying to meet the needs of our community. So, you know, with that, I just want to say that I want to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and here's to 2021, and hoping that it's the beginning of the end of this pandemic. So Merry Christmas, everyone. No further business. We're adjourned.
Merry Christmas.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.